Good morning. My name is Judith Finlay, and it's my honour to welcome you all to the launch of the Quilts, Echoes and Memories. Today, in order to welcome us here and to officially open this launch, we have the Lord Mayor, Hazel Chu. Thank you so much, Hazel, for coming here today. I would like to welcome you on behalf of Dublin LGBT Pride and Queer Culture Ireland, and I'll hand over to yourself, Hazel.
Thank you. So thanks folks for coming today. It's a great honour and privilege to open this exhibition, and it's been 30 years that the quilt was first stitched in memory of Joe Carty, who was a man who died of AIDS-related illness. So at the time it was really important of how we remember him, and so together people came together to stitch this quilt in memory of him. And then from there it went around the world, and different people and different memories went on. And I think it's particularly poignant this year, especially in light of the pandemic, where we have so many to remember around the world, and where we are tied and bound together by our grief, but also to celebrate those who pass, which is really important with this piece of work, because it's a piece of artwork that celebrates those lives and celebrate the importance of what people have been fighting for. I would like to particularly thank and commemorate Mary Shannon, who was our first custodian of the quilt. Her husband Christy is here today with us, and I like to just say a massive thank you to herself, but also in memory of all the hard work she's done to get us to this stage and to have the quilting custody for 30 years. So I'd like to invite everyone to come down and see it. All our museums and galleries and exhibition spaces are open. Come along and celebrate with us of all these great people, but also this amazing piece of artwork and amazing piece of togetherness that we have formed as a community. I'd like to again thank Dublin LGBTQI community, and also Queer Culture company as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lord Mayor.
Hello, thank you all for tuning in. My name is Patrick, and I'm one of the curators of the Quilt exhibition, and we're standing outside the section dedicated to Gay Health Action. And for those of you that maybe aren't aware, Gay Health Action, it was one of the first organisations set up dedicated to responding to the AIDS crisis in Ireland. It came about at the time when there was an increasing number of AIDS cases, but also the media began to sensationalise the AIDS crisis. We began to see headlines describing AIDS as the gay plague, the gay disease, and the gay cancer. And a number of individuals from a number of different gay organisations in Ireland, primarily in Cork and Dublin, came together in January and February 1985 to see how they might respond to the developing situation. And it was decided that they would set up Gay Health Action, primarily to, I suppose, tackle two issues: the misinformation surrounding AIDS, but also to get as much information out there on how individuals could reduce their risk of contracting HIV. I suppose that their campaigns were primarily focused around leaflets, posters and booklets. And what we see in their campaigns is primarily an attempt to reduce or to dismiss the misinformation around AIDS, but also to get as much explicit information into the wider gay community, but also the wider community. So they produced the first AIDS information booklet in 1985 with two objectives: to dismiss the idea that AIDS was a gay disease, but also to introduce what became known as safer sex practices. The leaflet was quite popular. There was a lot of demand for it, there was a lot of praise for it, but it also encountered a lot of problems as well. And we need to bear in mind that this is a period in time when I suppose there's a complete lack of sex education, access to condoms is severely restricted, and you have a government who really hasn't taken the crisis in any way serious. So they introduced a number of safer sex practices, which again advise people to use condoms, and this becomes particularly problematic at that time. And over the next 5 years of their existence, they produced a condom card, the Joys of Sex poster, the first AIDS information booklet, And again, they're quite sex positive as well. They tried to move away from this idea that it was casual sex that was spreading disease, and they focused on unsafe sex practices and trying to give people the tools and information they needed to reduce their risks. They didn't get much, if any, support from the government. They ran into some issues as well with the church, who were primarily concerned with, promoting this idea that it was, by promoting condoms, you were going to increase the risk. And their campaign, or the church's campaign, was primarily focused on fidelity, and that sex was the main problem here. And this was something that the government as well, in their campaigns, was quite simplistic, moralistic, and Gay Health Action described as ineffective. So they didn't get any funding from the government. They had won £790 grant from the Department of Health in 1985 for their AIDS information booklet, but that led to some controversy that the Health Education Bureau had given them funding, bearing in mind that sexual activity in males was criminalised at that stage. So after the first AIDS information booklet, they didn't receive any more funding. And they lasted for 5 years, and they did receive a lot of praise. Senator Shane Ross in 1990 said that the heterosexual community owe a debt of gratitude to the gay community, and that it was they that took the lead on getting as much information out to the public. And I think there's no doubt that they did save many, many lives. They were there for those marginalised groups who didn't have anyone else to reach out to. And it was through the gay community, the likes of the Hirschfield Centre, Sides, Discos, that Gay Health Action were able to generate the funds that they needed to produce. And if you come down and you see the exhibition, you'll see the number of different publications that they did produce, and the language was quite explicit, and that they got a lot of, I suppose, criticism, but also a lot of praise from the likes of family planning clinics, who recognised that this explicit information was exactly what we needed at that time. And had it not been for Gay Health Action, this information would not have come into the public domain when it did. And I think it's safe to say that because of Gay Health Action and what they did, many lives were saved in Ireland. And I'll hand over to Kate now.
Thank you, Patrick. My name is Kate Renan. I'm also one of the co-curators of the Quilts Echo and Memories exhibition. I'm just here to give a little history about how it came about. So Queer Culture Ireland was founded roughly about 2 years ago. I'm one of the co-founders with Judith Finlay, who you saw earlier. We wanted to put a group together that would share research about the history of our community, about key moments in our history, and we were doing our research independently. I work for the gallery and Judith works for the National Museum, and we realised while we were doing that research that a lot of the information comes from us pooling our resources together and working as a community to put that together. So we wanted to start that group, but then around the same time Judith Finlay got in touch with Mary Shannon, who was one of the original custodians of the quilt. Mary sort of handed the quilt over to Judith to look after and to take care of. Mary Shannon unfortunately died in July of this year, and there is a memorial to her in this exhibition as well, and it is dedicated to Mary Shannon and the work she did.
Hi, my name is Mary Shannon, and I'd like to introduce you to the AIDS Memorial Quilt, the Irish one. We started working on it in 1990 when a great friend of ours died, and at the same time we heard about the American Names Project, and we decided we'd make one, and that's our first one there. And it's his first one that the full name was on it, because his mum and dad spoke about openly what was wrong with him. But what we done was we started a workshop in the Dublin AIDS Alliance in Parnell Street, and families and friends would come in and we would all work together on the different panels. A panel is 6 foot by 3 foot, the size of an average grave. And then when you put them all together, they become a quilt, which is 12 foot by 12 foot.
But we wanted to put the quilts on display, not only because of the anniversary of the original launch of the Irish Names Quilt, which was in January 1991. So that anniversary is coming up in January. But we also wanted to sort of draw parallels between the AIDS health crisis in the 80s and 90s and our current international health crisis, and to sort of show the similarities but also the differences. And the quilt itself, as you can see behind me, is really quite spectacular and memorialises all the people who died of AIDS-related illnesses, and each panel is the same dimensions roughly of a coffin, which is really quite poignant. We worked with Patrick and also the Dublin LGBT Pride team, who have been absolutely incredible in putting this together. We're down here in Filmbase, so if you'd like to come and visit and take a look and let us know what you think on our social media.